That's San Diego Harbor. I took that shot myself about a year ago, and that's a regatta, sailboat regatta from a private club called San Diego Yacht Club. I'm not a member, but it's quite nice to look at. And we're going to be joined today by an international cast. On screen right now is Andreea, who is based in Bucharest, Romania. Uh, is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me. My name is Andreea Munteanu. I am based in Bucharest, in Romania. I'm really excited to be here with you, and thank you again for the invite.
Oh, thank you for trusting me to go to this first step. It's great. As I said, we're going to be joined by an interesting cast. Our featured speaker is in London, Heather, uh, and she's a business psychology. And when she gets on, she'll give you her explicit background information and what she's doing. She has spoken at my live meetings in London when I produced across 3 years, one a year, in-person meeting that was sponsored by the Global Trading Bank, HSBC, inside their global headquarters in London. And they asked me to come and produce my style of event. And I was introduced by others to Heather, uh, and she is a business psychologist, as I mentioned. One of her trade names is being the cafe coach, meeting people casually, casual environment, but talking about important business psychology issues, not only about themselves, but organizational development, talent development, customer retention. She's going to be talking about a challenge that she just experienced going on a sabbatical to Antarctica. And it's really cold and you have to prepare yourself mentally and physically. And so this is about the physical and mental challenges of going through that experience and how it relates to life in general. Fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Joining us will be Joseph McGuire from Dublin, and he has been in business 30 years in a psychological facial recognition framework, helping investigators, helping police authorities, helping people who are interviewing talent to decipher their facial, and does it mesh well with what words they are saying about themselves and about their capabilities. In other words, are they faking it? Are they truthful or what? So this is not about you, but it's about the idea of people under stressful situations. And Joseph has a calming effect, which I think you're going to find really interesting. And and then also joining us is hopefully, as he will, Ken Lloyd, Dr. Ken Lloyd, Ph.D. in organizational development. And he has been a member of our internal consulting group called Global Press Club, which helps people with media training and skills development, speaking on camera, speaking in person. And he is an expert in that field as well. And Ken and I have become friends virtually. We haven't met in person yet, but we will, I'm sure. And uh, it's been a fruitful relationship for sure. Uh, so this program is going to feature Heather and her remarks, and she has a few slides about the penguins and about the dramatic scene in Antarctica. Andreea, tell us about your practice, about your business.
I first of all, based on the descriptions, I am really excited to be part of this forum today among all these
Thank you.
experts. I am a passionate neuro leadership coach focused on performance. I have an HR background. I have been an HR business partner for a while and working in employee development. And today I also run my own company. I founded Aspire Co 1 year ago, where I coach professionals and leaders to think more clearly, lead with intention, and I'm trying to do my best to help them build their dream career path. So I mainly focused on their future performance, their, dreams at in the professional side, and I partner with all sorts of professionals to try to, entangle everything that is going on around in the business world and in their own career.
And to what extent is your business currently involved with US companies?
I have been working with some professionals from the US. I solely work with, in a one-to-one approach. Um, so it's mainly having I have been lucky enough so far to work with some professionals from the US, and the majority of them would be from the European countries.
I see. Okay. And do you deal with the expat family?
I had one case of a client that moved recently from the US to Ireland. So he has been an expat, if I'm not wrong, for 1 year or so. So thinking about, the majority of a time in position as an expat, he would be among the average medium cases. So that would be my only case if I think about it. So yeah.
To what extent do you work with the family of an expat?
My work is mainly focused on the, direct client. So in this case, if the expat would like to have the opportunity to have some coaching sessions and focus on, I don't know, getting him accommodated with the new environment, trying to, focus on his performance and work on clarity or prioritization now in the new role or in the new culture that he recently moved to. So not necessarily directly with the family, but I can definitely help the individual to accommodate to the new role.
So let's jump aside for a minute and we'll circle back to this topic in a minute. Now, about your personal brand, there's the professional brand, which is what we've just been discussing, but then there's a personal brand, like for instance, with me. Okay, well, I like to take pictures, shoot pictures, and we have tons of pictures and walk around. Joanne and I go for walks every day. We strive to do 10,000 steps uh, each day. Sometimes we do 14 and sometimes 7, but we always keep moving. And she's mostly doing it, and she drags me along, and of course I go too. And as a result, we both get healthy. So it's good.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's personal brand. Yeah. Yeah.
um well, first of all, congratulations. I mean, I know how hard it is to reach those 10,000 steps. I try to do that at least during weekends. But I would say that mainly part of my personal brand I can think of watercolor painting. Um, I love that a lot. It's something that brings me back to my happy place, if I can say like that. It's something that brings me joy and just calms me down whenever I have, I don't know, a busy day. So it would be that. And I can also mention walking in nature. So maybe, as I told you, maybe I don't have those 10K steps every day, but at least I'm trying to, move around and just disconnect from technology in general.
Well, good luck. it, but that is the right thing to do, because I know we're just addicted to all of this, thinking I'm going to miss something. And do I really care about this and that? No, I don't care. But I'm drawn to watching it. Yeah. So, to what extent do you use Zoom or Teams video in your conversations? I assume you have a lot of outreach using this kind of mechanism.
It's true. I mean, I'm a fan of Teams meetings. Um, but the majority of my sessions are online. Of course, a coaching session works best when it comes to both the audio and the video interaction. My clients tend to enjoy more the face-to-face interaction, which I do too. But sometimes it's not possible. The geographical, let's say, barriers won't allow us every time to meet in person. So yeah, I think I would be a Teams meeting fan. So yeah.
Yeah, well, me too. We could not afford to take the time and the stress of getting on airplanes. Now, years ago, I did that. I was going someplace all the time, but mainly across the US in different employment centers. Uh, I'm here in California a very long time, and this, of course, is a big market. Um, but let me tell you about our readership, our audience, okay, as we await the arrival of the other participants today. So, currently, according to research by LinkedIn, uh, I've been involved with LinkedIn for almost 20 years, and they track everything, they measure audience views and clicks and whatever. Uh, so it's believable, trusted. But what they don't measure is YouTube, and what they don't measure is subsequent distributions and viewership. People like me, or perhaps you, or Ken, or somebody else, they're going to recirculate something that perhaps they are a guest speaker in for their own purposes. So all of that secondary and continued, I call it, audience captivity, audience views, audience interaction, they have no measurement, no control over it. But you just know it goes on.
Yeah.
You just don't know how much. So our audience is using the LinkedIn groups is not all the time. 2.6 million is the audience reach through the different group memberships that I hold and the number of members who receive the videos or audios that I send out. Not all of them will care, and they may care, but they don't open it. Or if they open it, they look at it for 2 minutes and then poof, they're gone. And
Mhm.
so this kind of dialogue and conversation is key to keeping, in other words, retained
Mhm.
attention,
Yeah.
rather than say something and goodbye. But so the concept here is conversational rather than speech making. That's it. Tends to engage the audience more. Uh, More than 90% of our audience are people in a business framework rather than just Mary, Joe, Jim, and Hank. They're within a business environment, and so they're very, very interested in how they can use this kind of a thing professionally in relationships or in customer development or servicing. Equally, the smarter ones learn from you, from the speakers, and want to meet. And they may send you a link message for future contact. So that's the extent of the audiences. More than half of the total audience is female on this
Mhm.
program. Again, in business relationships. And because we concentrating on talent, all things connected with talent recruitment, talent attraction, recruitment, assessment, talent development, talent comp and ben, talent placement, and then talent retention. Everything connected with all that. And that's a lot of women involved, not totally, but a lot. And so that's how our audience has developed and continues to be in that way. So the concept of audience development is in being human and being interesting and interested in other people. And that's the purpose of having small group interactions. Um, so we have me and you and two or three others who will be joining us. We don't want to have a large group with 10 or 15 or 20 because people won't have enough time to make it effective for themselves. They may be interested and drop in for a few minutes, but poof, then they're gone. Or if they
Yeah.
stay on, they're not paying attention. So we'd rather have people totally involved, totally immersed, and value the experience. And that's been the focus of our success as well as uh, the educational value. I wanted to up not only for you, but for the people out there watching. So tell us about life, your life in Bucharest. And now I didn't pronounce that right. You pronounced it a little bit different with a strong accent on the first syllable, right?
No, I think you captured that right.
Oh,
To
okay.
be even, to even think about the Romanian version, so I would say life in Bucharest. It's exciting. It's a city full of opportunities, and you get to experience also the calm of a capital, um, which is important. I don't know. I visited New York City in spring this year, and of course, I'm always amazed by the city itself. It's full of life, full of events, full of people, all sorts of people. Um, and if I can think about it, on a smaller scale, I think that Bucharest is kind of similar because we get to experience all sorts of opportunities from the marketplace to the fact that we have a mix of cultures already. And I really think that it's a city full of life. Not so much maybe in the winter time because it's a bit too cold for outside activities. But I'm glad I live here, and it gives me also the opportunity to enjoy other places. I love traveling, so I love to um, I don't know, experience a new culture from time to time, even for a few days. But I always love coming back. So um, I definitely welcome you when you get the chance. Um, Probably in
Thank you.
spring, I would say. Springtime is best.
Yeah. So for a long time, Romania was under control of the Soviet Union, and now the country is part of the EU, right?
Yeah, so we experienced communism, and there are already like 30 years since things changed. We are part of the European Union. We have lots of international investment over here in terms of, corporations and companies that that really trust the Romanian culture and the people here and want to invest in, I don't know, their offices, in people, in even expats, as you were mentioning earlier. It's a market that can sustain the international needs. So actually, Bucharest started to be um, a hub for um, for cultures throughout these years. Um, Mainly, mainly corporate offices.
Interesting times. Okay, so the young people, say teenagers or college kids in Bucharest, in Romania,
Mhm.
uh, do they generally, of course, do they aspire to remain in Bucharest, or are they more interested to go to London or Paris or Milan?
Mhm. So I'm honest here, I don't have my homework here. I mean, I'm really impressed about your report when it comes to the audience that you have. Congratulations for that. I don't know exactly the numbers of, how we are in terms of percentage of, let's say, teen migration, if I can say like that. But it's true. Um, we have universities in Romania that can sustain and support the life of a young adult that wants to go to university or college and have a master's degree and so on. But it can be that we have our teenagers that are looking to experience other opportunities in, you were pointing correctly, London, maybe the Netherlands for the Amsterdam universities. Um, I think Italy. It's also there in top five when it comes to university choices. Um, and if I can think of another one, would be also Germany. It's another popular country for um, students. Even for a small university exchange, not necessarily for a whole, you know, year, but even for a few months. So it is this wish, it's still this wish to try to seek out for other opportunities in other countries. But I'm also happy to say that we have lots of foreigners that are moving to Romania because they want to experience university life here. And the majority of them are looking to join the, you know, more on the technical side, if we speak about engineering, um, and yeah, so we have some sort of an exchange.
That's really interesting information. Thank you very much. Okay, so now typically, what will you be doing during the upcoming Christmas holiday?
Mm, I'm planning already to meet with my family for the next week. Christmas, in my opinion, it's always about family and loved ones. So I'm going to go back to my hometown. I was born and raised in the southwestern part of Romania. Yeah, it's about me going back to my family, spend some days there. Um, I'm really happy that I know when I go back home, my mother is fully prepared with all sorts of dishes for Christmas. And Yeah, that's about it. New Year's, to be fair with you, is more about friends and spending the New Year's Eve together. And family, it's always linked to Christmas.
That's fascinating. Yeah, well, we
Thank you.
have a family gathering coming up this weekend, and
That's nice.
yeah, and looking forward to that. So, Joanne and I have been together 29 years, and
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. So we met um, when I turned just about 52. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and ever since then, my life has been great. So, but it wasn't so easy before then. Uh, Different issues, business concerns, misunderstandings, that kind of thing, making mistakes. Uh, and there's a lot of them. So
Hmm.
the business, I've been doing this kind of media oriented business, not on Zoom because it didn't exist, but in print magazines and live conference and meetings uh, and trade show. And I did that for 25, 30 years. Uh, and so now at this stage, uh, the Zoom and doing virtual, digital
Hmm.
is so easy, and you have to study it to become effective with it because it's not so easy. It looks it, but it's complicated and it's subtle. At the same time, if you make a mistake, it's strong and tough because
Yeah.
people don't come back. So I've been working hard, especially with people like Heather and Ken. And hopefully, they're going to show up in a few minutes. Uh, that we've managed to grow the comfort level into what I affectionately call this the global meeting room.
Hmm.
And I call it the psychological safe place. In other words, creating an environment for idea exchange and communication about background and future ideas, and therefore build relationship with total strangers. And that becomes the exact opposite of being total strangers. It becomes close bond
Yeah, exactly.
because you want to, not because you have to. And when that happens, and you know what? Only after that happens, trust happens, safety, feeling. And so the experience of sharing ideas that you might not want to talk about, but then you feel comfortable, if not on camera, then afterwards in private conversations, meeting people and establishing rapport. And the more that rapport is felt, the more trust happens.
Mhm.
And then it's great. And there's no limit on what could be done between new relationships. It's really exciting. And I'm hopeful that you will feel that way. Now, let me ask you a question. And we're filling time now, but this is being recorded, and you'll get a
Mhm.
copy of the video and the audio and the text speaker notes from
Mhm.
AI here. But and you can do whatever you want with it, uh, and it's all complimentary from me to you.
Thank you.
So we have membership subscriptions. We have organized development media comfort zone development programs that people can speak in big groups, small group, or just one-on-one. And that's very available, as I'm sure you noticed in some of the sample videos I sent. And you have access free to, excuse me, I'm getting messages here.
Mhm.
Okay. So you have access free on the YouTube channel to every production that I've produced. Is over 1,100,
Mhm.
and they're all free. You can subscribe to that YouTube channel if you want. It's free, no strings attached. But it's a way of communicating, and in what will hopefully be a pleasant way. So to be effective for you, uh, I'm hopeful that Heather and Ken and Joseph come in the next 15 minutes or so, and you can feel comfortable meeting with them. I'll arrange that. Uh,
Yeah,
but
thank you.
yeah, and so the whole concept here is for me to help you use this time and the time coming up uh, to be effective for you and your business. So, how do you typically find new business? Is it through interchange like this, or is it in combination with your own meeting people, for instance, on LinkedIn?
Mhm. Um, the most effective way for me has been, s- focused on recommendations, I would say. So I rely very, very much on people that saw the interaction with me effective and they were happy with what they got as an outcome out of our sessions. And they can, recommend me for the future. And, you know, everyone has a friend at some point or a colleague that they know are maybe struggling with something or they want to um, change their current role or they want to like 100% switch their career to something else. And I really appreciate the recommendations that I get. And it shows me that people trusted me. So this type of, I don't know, word of mouth advertisement works best. Um, And then second, I think it would be also the face-to-face interactions that I get through networking events. Um, so mainly, mainly these two, I would say.
Very interesting. Heather is coming into the studio in a few minutes. I
Mhm.
just got a message, and which is great. Okay, so that information that you just explained, that makes, of course, good sense, and that will become a very interesting part of this program
Mhm.
uh, because of the way you clearly talked about that and the safety that I've tried to generate, safe feeling of safety, psychologically safe, uh, that helps people. And Heather is just arriving. 1 second, pushing
Yep.
the buttons, pushing the right button here. And so here is Heather, Heather de Cruz Cornier. Hi, Heather.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello. It's been a
Hello.
while, hasn't it, Ed, since I've seen you?
I know since, and so you've
Your
unfrozen.
Since your special celebration
Very special.
for your
But
80th
you,
birthday. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know. I don't advertise that. I didn't want to tell Andrea how old I was, but
You look amazing. I don't know how you do it. You need
Yeah.
to
well,
bottle that.
It's Joanne.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay,
Ah, of course, the wonderful
okay.
Joanne.
Heather, I want to introduce Andrea
Hello,
Montano.
Andrea. It's
Hello.
lovely to
Nice to
meet
meet you.
you. Lovely
Lovely
to
to
meet
meet you
you.
too.
Yeah, so Andrea is Bucharest, Romania, and Heather
Fantastic.
is in the London area. What
Yep.
part of London are you in?
I'm a born Londoner in South London, but I live outside London now. I live out towards Stansted Airport, so I'm going out towards Cambridge. So I'm still in the southeast in a little county called Hertfordshire. So yeah, so just
Good.
I'm 25 minutes away by train into the heart of London. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I've only flown into Gatwick and of course Heathrow, but not. I mean Heathrow, but not
yeah,
Stansted. If I
yeah,
was a Londoner, I'd certainly use that. It'd be easier.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So is that a new logo that I see there?
No, I mean this is
ABP.
the ABP is because that's where
I hear bells.
that's yeah, I'm just putting my phone on mute. That's where I have my I've been with them for about 15 years. It's the Association of Business Psychologists, and they are the accrediting body for my certification. So it's something that I'm really proud of because it's quite difficult as a business psychologist. You know, you study for many years, and then you have to practice, and everything has to be documented, and then you have an accrediting body. So I've been a member with them for 15 years. Yeah, so I'm extremely proud to be a business psychologist. I'm also a coaching psychologist. So yeah, so that and Cafe Coach is my company that I founded many years ago to coaching cafes. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of background about me. What about you, Andrea? What do you do?
Um, it's pretty similar, if I can say like that. I am a neuro leadership coach. I focus on performance in the organizational culture, of course.
Okay.
So I work with, leaders or just professionals, individual contributors, to try to structure their career, their changes, professional
Yeah.
changes, and, you know, basically their dream career path, if I can say like that.
Yeah, and it's because of the shortage of skills and the situation that we're in currently post COVID. I think we're in a real pivot point for growth for the economy leaders as well, the skills shortages, and everybody's having to do a lot more with less. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, but a transformational time, in order to balance these skills shortages with immigration policies and things like that. So yeah, again, having to do a lot with less. Ed, you know all about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah, it's
only from
true.
learning
And
from you,
Yeah.
yeah. You wrote a paper a couple of years ago. Remember when we were doing the events inside HSBC in London,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you had previously written a paper uh, about expats and
Yeah.
about especially the spouse and family
The
issue
spouses.
and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
impact on the cost and success
Yeah.
of an expat assignment. And you've won all
Absolutely. Yeah.
kinds of awards.
I
Why
did.
don't you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that and the Primates Foundation
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's a good
inform
point.
Andreea about that?
Yeah, so Andreea, I don't know how much you know about global talent mobility and expatriates that are moving, and if they have a dual career, which means the partner they're bringing also has a career and the double income. What's happening mainly is that it's hiding in plain sight that nothing is really offered to the other working partner, male or
mhm,
female. And this for me, and this is ROI. And so the paper that I did a research, it took a year. I was commissioned to do research. And what I was explaining was that a coaching program for the partner or spouse of the expatriate will cost 0.3% of the overall average budget that it costs to send an expatriate abroad. And yet it can make the difference of whether or not that assignment fails or repatriates early. And it's such a simple fix. And it really makes a lot of sense. And yet constantly we're having to fight to keep or to even find any budget at all for a dual career family. And often the expatriate doesn't have any coaching allowance themselves either. So this is something that I've been advocating for many, many years. I really do believe that sometimes these decisions can shape policy in a very positive way, and really you need to show the ROI. The ROI figures need to be there. It's very, very important, and it's there. And Permits Foundation is headquartered in the Netherlands. It's basically a Dutch NGO. And it's founded by a wonderful group of people who really recognize this problem. It was founded over 2 decades ago, and they do great work in this area to provide quantitative and robust data to show the impact of how a move, investment into looking after the spouse's needs can make or break an assignment.
mm.
So that's it really in a nutshell.
So, Andreea, you and I had talked earlier this morning about your background and the kinds of people you're dealing with. So you touch on some of the expats, don't you?
Yeah, so Heather, I had a case of a client. It was someone that moved from US to Ireland. They were already for 1 year, and so in the role in the new role, and it was, I mean, my work wasn't focused on their family or the spouse, let's say, but it was mainly focused on themselves. And I mean, the point that you raised, it's really, really important. It's true that for someone that moves to a new culture, to a new place, it's hard enough to accommodate to the new environment, let alone the fact that they also need to go back home and encourage their spouse to try to also, accommodate to the new country. And I don't know, if you have also a larger family, you moved with your children too, things may get complicated. So the initiative that you speak about, it's really, really important. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And Ed, Ed, I've been collaborating with Ed, I think, for these past 2 years, and it's really been wonderful to meet so many like-minded people. You come on to do some professional networking, and you leave with not just professional networking, but a group of friends, people who support you, and um, and Ed's just, he's a phenomenon. He's known very well in these circles. We met in person in London, right, Ed?
I know. Yeah.
And it's just wonderful that that he's doing this global PR, his global meeting room. Um, some of the topics are just really, you would never find topics like this anywhere else. But there's
Mhm.
always an element where you learn. You come away always having learned something, and also having met someone who is going to be, very important and useful in your network in the future. So, yes, I can't recommend Ed's platform
Oh,
highly
yes, so
enough.
kind. So the first time I brought you together, well, into that group at HSBC, Yvonne Kwak from the
Yes,
World Bank
yes.
was already my client, and so I put Heather and Yvonne into a live talk in front of all these bankers and related people, and unrehearsed, and it just was such an engaging conversation about the issues. Uh, Yvonne dealing with bankers, global bankers, and
Yeah.
that view just correlated perfectly with her with
This
the
is Yvonne's
research.
this is Yvonne's
Yeah,
book. I often have it very close to hand because it's called Whose Career? Yours, Mine, or Ours? And she developed something called the Care Code. So she's quite instrumental. She knows obviously the permits group as well, um, and so yeah, she's been in the space for probably a long time too. I think also getting on for 2 decades. So yeah, I haven't seen Yvonne on your show, Ed, for a while, and I hope she's okay.
yeah, I hope
So
so too. She's on my list of people to send a Christmas greeting to today
yeah,
or tomorrow, and so
yeah,
I'll say that you said hello to.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so who's coming on today? I
Well,
mean, I'm happy
Joseph,
to just chat to both of you, and
yeah,
yeah.
Joseph
So
McGuire is coming in about 5 or 10 minutes,
okay.
and
Oh, it's lovely to
and
see Joseph.
yeah, and from Dublin, and from LA, Ken Lloyd, Dr. Ken Lloyd is going to join us. I've been trying to reach him. He's in a meeting right now.
Yeah,
Uh, so, what is your time? You need to exit at after how much time?
I'm fine. If Joseph is definitely coming on, I'd love to have Joseph. I'd love to wait for Joseph to come on, and
Yes.
Ken as
Okay. Good.
well. I'm happy to give it a few minutes, if Andrea has the time as well. Are you staying on for the talk, Andrea?
I thought that, the talk started 1 hour ago. But
Oh gosh. Oh,
I can
okay.
still stay for 30 minutes. Um,
Oh,
Oh,
and that
the
should
time
be it.
zones are crazy. So,
oh,
yeah.
Andrea, it's so lovely that you joined. It really is. And I tell you what we'll do. If you stay for 20 minutes, I'm happy to connect with you privately and show you the rest of the presentation together, and we can have a chat too. How about that?
Sure, I would love that. Thank you.
We
And
can do
here's
that, no problem. Here's
and here's
Ken.
Ken
Hey,
Lloyd in
Hi.
Oh,
L.A.
nice
yeah.
to see
And
you.
you two know each other well. It's really
It's
nice.
been a while, Ken, but I love seeing your posts and hearing what you're up to. So yeah, take it
Well,
away.
right back
Yeah,
at you. Thank you,
Ken,
Heather.
Ken, thank you. And meet Andreea Montano. I probably didn't say that correctly. I'm sorry. She's in Bucharest, Romania.
Wow.
No worries. Thank you, Ed. Thank
Andreea,
you.
nice
Nice
to
to
meet
meet you,
you.
Ken.
You too.
Yeah. So Ken is has got a PhD. I'm just showing you off. That's all. Is that in organizational development and things related to that. Ken, for the listening audience, especially in Eastern Europe, why don't you go a little deeper?
Oh, sure. Going going very deep, graduate of UC Berkeley a zillion years ago. Picked up my PhD at UCLA, and as Ed mentioned, organizational development. Immediately went into management consulting and doing a lot of writing of various business books. Had a newspaper column that was syndicated through the New York Times Syndicate, giving workplace advice. Joined one of my clients and stayed there for 18 years as VP of Employee Planning and Development, and now moved on to consulting, basically coaching and doing more business writing. My most recent book, Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies. And it's a fun project to do. It's got over 3,000 phrases. So when you write those, you suddenly start talking that way. Puts in full effort and gains all that is sought in the process. But gradually, I've gotten out of that narrow mindset.
Oh, thank you for saying that again for the benefit of Andreea, but also for our burgeoning European, Eastern European audience. We have um, Andreea, I think you're the only one in Bucharest that we have, but we have a lot of listeners and viewers in Poland uh, and in Ukraine when they have connection. Um, for the benefit of the audience again, and for Ken, um, tell us about your consulting business, Andreea.
So, I'm a neuro leadership coach. I focus on performance. I focus on career growth, transformational changes, for the future career path that someone would like to experience at some point. It's funny that you mentioned, Ken, performance appraisals. It's actually the year-end performance cycle for, I believe, everyone in the corporate world right now. So it's nice to think about the new year, not only in terms of organizational goals, but also to think about it like in your own professional way and try to establish some clarity for 2026 for your achievements and objectives. So I kind of like um, help leaders and individuals to navigate through that. And especially with the new year, I think the most um, frequent topic is 2026 objectives and how to make the best out of the new year.
That's really good. Ken, do you have a question, comment?
No, just totally agree with what Heather, hi Heather, with what Andreea is saying. In terms of goals, we really separate the same thought in terms of performance goals coming up, as well as development goals. And that would
Mhm.
be in terms of upskilling, training, growth, moving along your career path. But in terms of real goals, not just dreams, but we have goals that really include strategies, steps, benchmarks, timing, and related factors. We're also moving, at least over here, far more into what's called continuous feedback, so that we're not just waiting for annual appraisals, but rather every week or two there are formal scheduled meetings between a manager and his or her members of the team, one-on-one, to talk about how's it going, what questions, what issues have come up, how are we doing on progress toward goals, we need to change our strategies toward getting there. And frankly, we're seeing more than one, if you will, performance appraisal session a year. It's usually now biannual or even quarterly. That's the direction that's moving to. There are no surprises, the anxiety is gone, people understand how they've been doing, and we're actually forward focused as opposed to just simply looking at the past and individual performance. So it's kind of a wider sphere now in terms of where that's going.
Andrea, have you heard of the phrase feed forward? Ken, am I saying that correctly?
Sure, feed forward. It's just another way of looking at giving people feedback, looking at past performance. Feed forward, what are we going to do in terms of development goals and training and correcting any issues that might need it so that we can advance, people can advance in their careers and toward their own goals.
So you can't do this on an annual basis. This has to be sort of immediate,
Yeah,
online even.
absolutely. And that's when feedback really and feed forward is most effective, when it's the closest to the behavior in question, as opposed to telling you, 8 months ago, you did a great job on that project. If I remember it, you don't want to be doing that stuff.
Right, right. Okay, Joseph McGuire from Dublin. Welcome, my friend. I'm glad you could join us.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. Always a joy
Yeah,
to be
what an
here.
entrance.
Yeah,
You got a round of applause from me, a round of applause from Ken. It was amazing. You're obviously very popular, Joe.
yeah. And
Thank you.
Joseph, meet Andrea Montanello from Bucharest, and Joseph is in Dublin.
Nice
Hey,
to
Andrea.
meet you.
Glad to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so Andrea and I have been on for about 30 minutes chit-chatting, and because I'm broadcasting from Phoenix and there's a 1 hour time difference between LA and Phoenix, it's a little crazy making. So I decided to just open it up early to make sure the darn thing works. So anyway, it works. And so this has really been just a delightful time to meet Andrea. We connected out of the blue or out of the black on LinkedIn, and built some trust enough so that she decided to come onto this thing, and it's just been wonderful. So Joseph, I think you probably saw by now in my PR over the past few weeks, I've been developing this thing called Global Meeting Room, and a way to bring people together virtually at no cost to exchange ideas and perhaps solve problems. And your work, for the benefit of the global audience out there, and Andrea, who's a first time guest here, is to understand the scope and the depth of what I like to call, and I learned this from Heather, a psychologically safe place. Heather, would you describe what a psych safe place is?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, Joseph, it's so lovely to see you again. And I must give some
Likewise, Heather.
kudos because I did attend a 6-week training course on nonverbal communication of Joseph's, and I owe you a wonderful recommendation and testimonial for the wonderful work. But I did go on sabbatical the week after it finished, but I didn't tell you. Hence my training today. But yes, so psychologically safe. So as a business and coaching psychologist, Andrea, I am very tuned into psychological processes, and psychological safety, I'm sure you've heard, is something that defines the landscape nowadays for teams, leadership, employees and employers more than ever. And it's an inclusive, safe space where people who are within that space or within that environment feel that they can share their ideas, their thoughts, if they would like to, in a meaningful way without any threat of repercussions to what they say. So I'm sure, what's your understanding of psychologically safe space? I'm sure you have in your coaching practice, you create a psychologically safe place too for the work that you do. So, but I'm very interested as well in the psychological contract. And what I love about Ken and the book and the work that he's doing is that the psychological contract, by having feedback forward and having more frequent check-ins, you are actually making clear any hidden any hidden expectations that you may have about your role or your tasks or your job or what's happening with your project. It's an opportunity to have a conversation to discuss that, so that anything that may be holding you back, or anything that might be holding a project back, can then be brought into some kind of transparent space that is safe to talk about, rather than just once a year or in a mid-year review. So I think, Ken, the great thing about what you're doing is that it does do that with the psychological contract. It actually gives that space to talk about it, and it is psychologically safe. So as long as it's not done as a checkbox process where it's just tick the box, it's done, okay, I've done that, it's off the list. And it's not mechanical. So yeah, so that's a little bit about that. But I'm sure, Andreea, you have your own experiences with creating psychologically safe spaces too.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. You pointed exactly right. So coaching actually has psychological safety as a foundation for the session itself. So it's always about building trust with the person in front of you, making sure that they are, they feel safe to speak with you, to try to, share their thoughts. And I would say that it's also about emotional regulation. So it's important to make sure that everyone is in the correct space or headspace to have that coaching session that day. And thinking about, I don't know, organizations and leaders nowadays, the psychological safety effect is so important, but sometimes so hard to achieve. Leaders, in my opinion, are expected to deliver results and also be humans. And it's something, sometimes it's hard to get the best out of both worlds. But I would love to hear more from my colleagues today about that.
Joseph?
Sorry,
Yeah, do you want to make a comment before we get into Heather's slides?
Yes, I'm probably working more with individuals within companies rather than teams so much. So there's what I see directly, and then there's what I observe peripherally. And I'm very selective about who I will work with anyway. So it's vitally important to me that those leaders I work with are attuned to the importance of trust, clarity of communication, respect, and that they recognize the value of treating the individual with trust and respect. And that in itself is a foundation place for me in creating that psychological safe place. But there have been people where I wasn't
yes, go ahead. I'm
invited to
sorry.
work, and I simply
Yeah.
say no, thank you, because it's clear that's not where they're coming from, and they do still exist, unfortunately.
So, Joseph, very quickly, have you had contact in this regard with expat family who are on assignment and there's difficulty?
Only peripherally. I do know people who do work in that space, but it's not really where I focused.
All right, great. So let's get into this discussion about challenges. Heather, use my screen share to upload.
Yeah. Can
when
you,
you're ready.
I don't think you've done screen share yet, so
Yes,
I haven't
yes,
been able to
it's
get it up.
open. Yeah, it's open now.
Oh, okay. Let me,
Yeah.
hopefully this will work.
So Heather has been on sabbatical in Antarctica. And
Yeah.
did you go alone or were you accompanied?
No, with my husband.
Yeah.
Can you all see,
And
because I'm
Yeah.
sharing the screen, can you
yeah,
see
what are
that
we looking
clearly?
at? Is that a mirror reflection or is
Yeah,
that
it's
actual?
it's an iceberg above the sea with a mirror reflection below.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. So why did you want to do this? Now, this was your second trip there, right?
Yes, yes. Oh, well, Ed, you're well informed. So yes, my husband and I had planned a sabbatical 2 years ago. I reached a milestone birthday, but I'm not going to share with you what that was. Andreea, you may need to jump off at any point because I know you've been on for a while, and you and I, wherever you stay, we'll catch up and we'll continue afterwards. So the as a child, I always had a fascination about emperor penguins, and not so much with Antarctica. It didn't matter that they were in the snow. And a few years ago, I think it was in 2017, we went to Antarctica, but it was on a completely different expedition. It was on an expedition to learn about Antarctica itself, to learn about Shackleton and what Shackleton had achieved, because he's done a great deal for team building and endurance, because he would not leave his team. He would not leave his team out there in the ship on the ice. And he serves as a great, I think, role model for what leadership should be. If I'm honest, there is a great respect for Ernest Shackleton amongst all of the polar explorers. It doesn't matter that he didn't get to the South Pole, which is what he wanted to do. What endures for him is how resilient he was and how much compassion he had for the people around him who supported him. So as a child, I loved penguins. And so my first trip to Antarctica in 2017 was with a polar explorer. We were on expedition. And I learned all about glaciology. I learned all about how to protect this wilderness so that it doesn't become exploited like Alaska, unfortunately, and how to preserve the life that's there through the Antarctic Treaty. So I became an ambassador for Antarctica 7 years ago. And because I was reaching this milestone birthday, and because my husband and I have been talking a lot about sabbaticals, because he has a very, very high pressured job, we planned 2 years ago that for this milestone birthday, we would go on an icebreaker. So an icebreaker is a ship that can cut through sea ice. It's practically unheard of. It's unknown. It's a new technology by French engineers. And we went on an ice-breaking expedition through the Weddell Sea in order to cut through the ice to get as close as possible to a colony of emperor penguins and their chicks. And there have been many attempts that have failed over the last 9 years because the sea ice was such that the ships couldn't get through. So it was a risk and a gamble, because we almost had to mortgage our property in order to go on this trip. It cost an absolute fortune. It took a lot of preparation, a lot of planning, but it was a dream come true, and it was the purpose behind. And Joseph knows, probably from my nose, that when I make a decision and I'm determined, I will move hell and high water to get to it if I can, if it's within reason, if it's realistic, if it's reasonable. So that's a little bit of the background as to what was driving this force, if you will, to get back to Antarctica. Now, the sea and the Drake Passage is such that many sailors did not get around the Cape Good Horn because of the treacherous conditions from the base of Argentina to get out across through to the Antarctic convergence. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, what drives these decisions? You have to really want to go. If you don't want to go, it's such a treacherous journey. You have to really, really want to go, and there has to be a payoff. And none of this was clear to me before we went. What was clear to me was the dilemma that we then faced when we finally reached Snow Hill. There was a huge dilemma that we had to make a decision on very quickly. And then we had to consider the different payoffs. And so that's the reason why Ed asked me to come on to the show today, really, to talk to you and share this very personal journey. I don't have all the answers, and I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from the panel about whether or not you've been on sabbatical. If you were to go on sabbatical, would it be to fulfill a purpose, or would it be for something else? I'd love to hear your insights too about decision making that you've had to make during times of severe uncertainty. So there are a number of psychological aspects here. It's not just my story. There are a number of things here that only really came to light after it had been experienced. So that's it. So any questions from the outset, and please jump in if anybody has questions. I prefer you unmute and you jump in and you ask your questions rather than waiting till the end. So anything
Andreea,
before
I know
we move
your
on?
time is limited. Do you have any immediate questions?
Well, no, I mean, amazed about everything that you mentioned, Heather. So, looking forward to see what you can share with us.
Fantastic. Ken, anything from, has anybody been to Antarctica? That's the biggest question.
No,
Anyone
not me.
been?
No.
Anyone been to the sub-Antarctic islands? So the Falkland Islands or down to the South Sandwich Islands or anywhere down there?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay. Well, I hope that it touches your hearts as much as it touched mine. And as icy as the pictures are, I hope it warms your hearts. So let's just get into it. Okay. So, oh dear. So we've gone, oh dear. I don't know what's happening. Okay. Can you see that now?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So this is a map of the world. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a visual sense of where we're looking down towards the South Pole, that big white area there at the bottom. And in order to get to it, you've got to go, as I said, you've got to get down to Argentina, or you can go from Chile. You can go from Chile as well. But the straightforward route that most people use is to go to the end of the world, the fin del mundo, it's called. And then that's where you board your ship. And then you head off. You can see the kind of curve around there, which is the Cape Horn, which is very difficult. And a little bit of a fact here that's really good for pub quizzes is that who ever noticed that pirates wear a gold earring? Anyone remember that?
From movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wear the gold earring, usually in their right ear. It's sailors started that tradition because they navigated around the Cape Horn successfully and survived. And because they survived, they got a gold hoop, a gold earring. So that's where that's a nice little pub quiz question. But yeah, so it's quite difficult to access. And you can only access it during the summer months. So it starts from October until March. That's when you can get there. After that, it's inaccessible. You can't get there anymore. There are researchers, so there are no inhabitants. It's not like Alaska where you have indigenous people. The only inhabitants are penguins. Some of them are there all the time and some are migratory. There's about 24 million penguin pairs. There's about 6 different species of penguins that are down there. So, and there are humpback whales that are traversing, migrating. They're there in the winter to fill up on all the krill, and then they move off to mate and have their young across to the other side of the world. So there's a lot of marine activity, and that's what makes it so exciting, because it's protected. There are different standards and different organizations that are protecting it. There's the Antarctic Treaty, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But the name Antarctica comes from the Greek, which actually means no bears. And that's because the Greek called the northern hemisphere Arctis, based upon the fact that there was a constellation that looked like the Great Bear. So it's called Arctos. So Antarctic was the landmass that they noticed to the south that they knew didn't have the Great Bear. So that's what Antarctica means. It just means no bear, and it has penguins. The polar bears are up in the north and the penguins are down in the south. So it's 90 degrees is where the South Pole is, and the sea. So you have the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific that are all kind of coming around, and then you have this kind of marine boundary going around the whole of the continent of Antarctica called the Antarctic Convergence. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because this is what makes it so inaccessible. You do not know what the sea conditions are going to be like. You can have 10-meter waves, and they call it the Drake Shake, or you can have calm sea, and they call that the Drake Lake. And you do not know. They try and predict what it's going to be like, and that's another reason why really you can only get the ships out during the summer. The average temperature is about -10 degrees centigrade in the summer, but it can get much colder, and it did actually get much colder while we were there as well. There are 2 seasons, summer and winter, and Antarctica has 90% of the world's ice and 70% of the world's water. So it is a very important and special place that nobody really talks about, nobody really knows very much about, but it is truly special, and it's the last wilderness, if you will, on Earth. So before we move on, any questions? Just a little bit of background. I don't want to go too much into the geography or things like that, but I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. But any questions immediately just about, where it is? Ed?
Okay, yeah, about the weather.
Yeah,
Antarctica is huge. Look how wide it covers.
yeah,
Of course, that's all relevant, I know. But
yeah.
so have you looked at any weather, meteorological impact of Antarctica? It must be a huge influence on the rest of the world's weather.
There is, especially when the Larsen ice shelf broke off, and there's been all different types of things happening with, with the planet warming. So yes, but that would be a whole other debate. That's a very, very good point. This is really what people think about when I think if Antarctica was more accessible and people could get to it more readily, I think people would perhaps be more motivated to protect the planet and look at your own carbon footprint and what it is that you do, because we all can do something to maybe help with what plastic waste we have or something like that. But I think it's something that you really need to experience for yourself, and when you do, you will be changed, because there is nothing like it on Earth. And I visited Alaska. I haven't been to the North Pole, but I have visited Alaska, and it's beautiful. It's just absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. And, I think the people who are ambassadors for Antarctica, what their biggest concern is the fishing for krill, and overfishing, and the use of resources in that area for exploitation, and the impact that would then have. So that is one of the main concerns of the Antarctic Treaty, and why ambassadors for Antarctica feel that it should be preserved for as long as possible for the sake of the planet and Earth. Any other questions?
Well, just about the temperature, I would have assumed it would have been much colder all the time.
Yeah, you're right, and it can be. I mean, don't forget, it was the beginning of summer, so -10 is like an average temperature. But yeah, we experienced temperatures that were much colder. I think the coldest temperature was -73 degrees centigrade, and it was in the territory where the Russians have a research base. So I'm trying to remember the name, but it was very, very cold. And I think in Antarctica it just feels much colder because there are no buildings, and there's no land masses anywhere to stop the wind from actually ripping through you. So they talk about the temperature, and then they talk about the kind of wind chill factor as well, which is a whole different thing. So yeah. Andreea,
well, to what extent is your breathing impacted or compromised? Your breathing? Do you have to wear a face mask with oxygen?
No. We wore face masks because we were so cold. And you have to be careful of the sun because of the reflection of the sun. Even when you can't see the sun. So everybody had bright red faces. So yeah, you have to dress in layers, and we'll come to that a bit later on. But you have to have layers. You have to have a base layer, and then you have a layer on top of that, and then you have a waterproof layer on top of that. So it's 3 layers. I'll move on to the next one now, because this one is then about the preparation. So 2 years in the planning, 2 years for planning, dream since childhood, budget, planning, finding the right vessel that could take us, you can reach Antarctica through different means, and you can travel on different cruises, and there are different budgets. And you can also, we wanted to get to the Weddell Sea, which you'll see in a moment on the itinerary map. There are different options. You can take the risk to go by ship that will get you onto one side of the continent, and you will then go by helicopter in short bursts over to where the colony is. But there are all these rules and regulations in place that the colony cannot be disturbed within a certain distance, and then you walk. The problem is that historically the helicopters haven't been able to go up because the weather has been too severe. So you've gone all that way, and you have an 8 to 30% chance of getting on the helicopter and seeing the colony. There's no guarantee. So according to my research, if we could get onto an icebreaker, we would have an 80% chance of getting through, because it could cut through the sea ice. So, and we found the right vessel. It took a long time to research. We found the right vessel. The vessel only started going out and doing this journey 2 years ago. So it's pretty new. But on the first attempt of going out, it managed to get through the sea ice, and it managed to land at Snow Hill. So we were very positively encouraged by this, and we had to make a decision, and we made the decision that that's what we were going to do. Then there's the insurance. So you can get some reasonable insurance, but it doesn't meet the needs of the company. So the travel company that we went with, you had to have an evacuation of $1 million evacuation liability in place in case at any point you had to be evacuated, because there are no facilities on the ship itself to deal with any serious illnesses. So yes, there's a doctor on board and a nurse, but they can deal with minor things. But if you were to have a heart attack and you needed to get to a hospital, you would have to be airlifted out, and it could take potentially 24 hours for someone to reach you wherever the ship is. So if you have any mobility difficulties, or if you have any chronic illnesses or very serious illnesses, it can be very, very difficult to get insurance. So again, that takes quite a bit of time to do all the logistical research to find that out. And then there's the logistics. We booked it 18 months in advance, and then did all of the planning from there based upon what the conditions were, the weather conditions, who got out there last year, how many cruises managed to get there last year, how many helicopters managed to get there last year. So we did a lot of research and tried to balance it out as best we could before we made the decision. And then, of course, there was the fact that it was my goal. It wasn't my husband's goal. It was my goal. So how do you persuade someone whose goal it isn't? I'd already persuaded him in 2017 that this was going to be magical, let's go. And it took me a year to persuade him then. So it took quite a while to persuade him. But in the end, I think it was because of my milestone birthday and the fact that he knew it was a childhood dream and it was on my bucket list, that he said that he would come. I wouldn't have gone on my own. There's absolutely no way I've gone on my own. So having a companion, having my soulmate, my husband with me was, that really sealed the deal. Having a sabbatical was wonderful because it kind of gave us the space, if you will, a bit like psych safety. It gave us the space that we knew we could learn and grow and not have any pressure about rushing to get back to work, or not being, switching off from our devices and really taking the time to enjoy this goal for both of us. So it became his goal because he was taking a sabbatical. And I think that's really important when you're traveling with someone and when you're in a long-term relationship, that if you're traveling, that it meets the needs of both of you. It's not just one-sided. It was really important to me that there was a purpose for my husband as well. And then, of course, the challenge. How do you prepare for a polar expedition? Physically, yes, you can start preparing the clothes, the layers, informing yourself. Brilliant with internet and AI and all sorts of things that you can do to help prepare yourself. I would say, and you'll find this with the dilemma that we then faced, I would say that we over-focused on the physical and the physiological on the cold. we were so wrapped up and so buoyant with all of our clothing because we'd over prepared with that. What we hadn't really prepared for was the emotional challenge. And even though it was nothing compared to what the polar explorers went through, it gave us a snapshot into what it must have been like for the polar explorers. And as for the mental challenge, I would say that if you cannot overcome the mental challenge of being in such a severe environment, it doesn't matter how physically prepared you are. It doesn't matter that you have the right gloves, you have the right clothing. If you do not have the right mindset, it means nothing. It means absolutely
Let me
nothing.
ask you a question quickly having to do with that. When the icebreaker was going through the ice, were you all told to buckle up?
No. And you'll see a picture. So I've changed the presentation slightly because I wanted to show you a picture of the ship sitting in the ice. But it was as if you have, what are those machines you use to break up concrete? Sorry, I can't remember. Pneumatic drill. You know, a pneumatic drill. It was like a pneumatic drill attached to the ship that drilled through the ice, and it's able to penetrate, I think, up to 15 to 20 meters of ice. And so as you were on the ship and it was drilling through, you could feel the vibration. It was like being at the dentist, being in the dentist chair with this vibration. And it could go backwards as well. So at some points, the ship couldn't go any further. It went through and it was too difficult and it had to actually reverse out and find another route. So a lot of it was trial and error. So it was very exciting, but all of a sudden it becomes clear what you've signed up to, because you can't prepare for that. You can't prepare for what you then experience. For me, I just wanted to get to see the penguins. I didn't really prepare properly for how we were going to get there and what that involved. I didn't really care. What cared to me was the payoff at the end. And I think that was a mistake. So that's a really good question. But yeah, I think when you see the pictures of the ship in the ice, it will become really clear to you. So this is the itinerary. So we started in Ushuaia, which is at the top right up there in the north. And then we crossed, you can see these red lines going all the way down. Now, the reason I've included this itinerary is because see the bright yellow stars. Those bright yellow stars is where the normal cruise ships go to see the Antarctic Peninsula here. And then there's a little passage called the Antarctic Sound. And sometimes the ships can go into that sound depending upon the weather. And then you reach the Weddell Sea just beyond that. And they can't get through unless they're icebreakers. So the red star, which you can see, is Snow Hill. So we went all the way through, and it actually was 2 days to cross the Drake's Passage to get from Argentina out into the Southern Ocean. And it then took another 2 days to get through the Antarctic Sound and through the ice of the Weddell Sea. So we were on the boat for 4 days before we even reached there. So you have to see your 4 days to get there, and you have to have 4 days to get back as well. So it is a journey. I mean, it is a real journey. So that will just give you a sense of how inaccessible it really is. And also it will give you a sense of these penguins, these emperor penguins, what they have to do, where they have to go in order to build their colony on this island that is filled with sea ice, and where they will only have one egg and they will mate, and they are facing the most treacherous conditions in order for them to survive, as a marine animal. It really gave us an insight into that. So let's move on now to the ice sheet. This will give you, this is the Weddell Sea. There are icebergs left and right, and then you've got the broken areas of the ice sheet. Now it's all very complex, and I'm not going to even try to give you I can give you some of my information that I gleaned when we were on the expedition, but there are so many different types of ice, and a lot depends on whether it's attached to the land or whether it's actually floating in the sea. So my understanding from the captain was that as long as the ice was in the sea, he could go through it. If it was attached to the land, he couldn't go through it because of the impact it would have on the land. So these were the conditions that this is when you arrive in the Antarctic convergence and you start moving through, this is what you see. And the degrees of depth, of thickness of the ice is just unbelievable. So that's just to give you a little glimpse into what the ice sheet at the Weddell Sea looked like.
Now, once again, the Antarctic convergence means
yes,
what?
Yeah, the Antarctic convergence is an invisible marine boundary surrounding the continent of Antarctica, where the oceans, Indian, Pacific, and Atlantic all converge. And then it goes into the Southern Ocean. And that's where you have different currents. So you've got currents. You have to see that you're at the bottom. You've got all the currents and it's moving. There's warm currents, cold currents, and this is ideal for krill, for instance, and plankton. And this is why there's an abundance of all this wonderful marine life, and while the humpback whales want to go there, and why the birds want to go there, and the penguins go there to feed. But it creates havoc. It creates absolute havoc for any ship that wants to cross the oceans. So we arrived at Snow Hill, and this is the ship. This is the icebreaker. And we landed here on the middle of the ice. And the expedition team got out. The helicopter went out. You can see the helicopter just at the front of the ship there. The helicopter went out to do reconnaissance in order to find the colony, to see where the colony was. And then it looked at the terrain. It took a few hours. So everybody was all excited. We were all on the ship just waiting to see what would happen. And we knew that they were off and we were going to hear where the colony is. And we knew that we were going to be going out the next day. We were told, you're going to be getting into your groups. There was 140 passengers. You're going to be getting into your groups. You're going to be going out. We don't know the details. You'll find out in the morning. So you can imagine the excitement. You know, we'd got there, you know, we'd crossed the oceans. We'd got there safe and sound. We were there. Wonderful. And then the expedition team went off and they were out practically for 6 or 7 hours to midnight. They came back with not very good news, and we knew nothing of this until the morning. So there we were at Snow Hill. The ship had anchored as much as it could. And what they had to do, they had all this equipment to make sure the ice was stable. They had to measure it. They had to do they had to bore holes into it to see how deep it was with the sea underneath to make sure it was strong enough for us to get out. There were all these technical things that were going on. So this was where, for me, the excitement began. This was it. It was going to come true. My psychological contract was met. I was here. I was there. And then we had the briefing the following morning. And everything that I believed and everything, all my hopes, just turned to huge disappointment. We then discovered from the captain that the sea ice conditions were so bad that he had to anchor the ship where he could, but it was much further away from the colony than he anticipated. The weather and the storm that had been there before we had arrived meant that we could not spend the amount of time that we had planned in order to get out and to get to the colony. And the landing of where he wanted to dock the ship was not in the place that he wanted. So all of these factors were shared with us in the expedition room, and we were told that in no uncertain terms that unless we were familiar and experienced at hiking 20 kilometers a week every weekend, that we were experienced climbers and hikers, that we had a very good fitness level, that we could hold our bladder and hold our needs, our basic needs, for a period of 6 hours without any breaks, without any eating, without any drinking, without any ability to sit down. So basically, when you're in Antarctica, you cannot, there are all these conditions to preserve it and protect it from all sorts of different things, bacterial infection, things like that. So you cannot drop anything, leave anything, and you cannot even sit down. You cannot put your camera down to have a rest. You cannot do anything. So we were told that the conditions were such that what the information they'd given us the day before was eradicated, and that there was a new set of conditions, and these conditions were quite critical, and that it was now an extreme polar hike.
Now I have an extreme message.
Yes.
We're running out of time. What is the status of this? How much, I mean, can you do this in 5-8 minutes?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, no
good.
problem at all. So this was and it was minus 10 degrees outside, but it was extremely windy, and it would feel, and we would only get 15 minutes at the colony. Now, do you want to go through all of that for 15 minutes to see the emperor penguins? My immediate reaction was, yes, I will do that. I will go, I will do that. But for many people, that wasn't their reaction. As soon as the reality hit me that I would not be able to go to the toilet, I wouldn't be able to drink any water, I wouldn't be able to do anything for 6 hours, and I do have a problem with my tendons, and I have a bad knee, things started to change. My husband also was concerned, and he manages risk. He manages risk. He's the chief risk officer, and for him, his first question was, the insurance will not cover an extreme polar hike. We then found out that they were calling it an extreme polar hike because when they had done it previously, people had slipped and broken limbs, and it had caused, because people had overestimated what their ability was. So because of this, a lot of the language that was used for me was really instilling a lot of fear. It was instilling a lot of fear in the people in the expedition room. And as a consequence, we had to make a decision very quickly, leave very quickly, and make this immediate decision. And so my husband and I, we had to sit down and really go through a few things to see whether or not we would sign up to do it. So the reason I think why this became a real learning curve in resilience was that despite the amount of planning that we'd both done, despite the fact that we are quite confident people, we're not overconfident, but we're not physically fit. We don't do hiking every weekend. We're not great outdoorsy people. But I said to my husband, you know, we've got a husky. We do a lot of walking with our dogs. I said, you know, I think we can do this. And as soon as we started saying, okay, what is it that we do that we think will enable us to do this? As soon as we started changing our language away from what had been told to us, we realized that a lot of how we felt was emotional. It was all about our self-doubts. Self-doubt started creeping in because of the language that was being used. It was a bit like the COVID, where the language was fear-mongering. It was really fear-based. And not at all encouraging people to look at themselves in a realistic way, but also in a way that they could reach a decision that was based on facts and not based on fear. So when we started doing that, we realized that there were a lot of factors that weren't in our control, and that we had to try and navigate how could we do this with the not going to the toilet, with the not drinking any water, and this kind of thing. And we decided to speak to the experts. So we did. We spoke to the guides who had been out the night before in order to get a sense from them what they'd gone through. And once we started to gather our information, it's a bit like an expatriate assignment. You do not know the unknown. And because you do not know the unknown, a lot of uncertainty and self-doubt creeps in. So we started to gather information. And as soon as we started to gather the information, we felt a lot more confident about the decision that we could do it and that we were going to go. So we're nearly there now. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because I don't know how much you all know about behavioral economics, but the psychology of decision making is this is used in advertising. I mean, Ken, you'll know all about this, but it's used in advertising. It's used in politics. It's used basically in business as well, for market, for product launches. And basically what it is, it's about how do you frame things? As soon as my husband and I started framing things and having more positive thoughts about being able to do it, the emotional aspect of how we felt about it changed absolutely completely. And then I realized afterwards that this is actually behavioral economics. This is the prospect theory of gain and loss. What are you going to gain from this and what are you going to lose? And Kahneman and Tversky in the late 70s, they came up with prospect theory, which is in cognitive psychology, which is basically that we are rational beings, but we can make decisions that are based on emotions that have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with rational beliefs. So fear and fear-based communications can really take over your emotions to the point where your thoughts then become negative. And because your thoughts become negative, you see the situation in a negative way, and your behavior is then influenced by that. So I think really the payoff for me and my husband was that we had traveled all that way and we were not going to go home without at least attempting to get to this colony, and that we were fit enough in able to do this, and that we would equip ourselves with whatever we needed within the rules and regulations, and with the new information that we had from the guides, enable to do it, and that we were determined that we were going to give it a go. And the payoff obviously was that we then got to the colony, and that is what grief is.
I have a quick question before I actually have to drop in a couple of minutes. When did you started to really define the payoff for, of course, both you and your husband?
The payoff was the colony. And I would say that it was definitely in the early stages before the mindset shift started.
So
It
right
was
before
it was the driving force, I would say. And this is what Kahneman and Tversky say, that there's risk, but there's reward. Risk, reward, risk, reward. It's just basic economics. So we didn't realize that this was happening at the time. This is actually what happened. I'm sharing with you this process, what happened. It's only retrospectively that I look back and see, and I can put this framework around what my husband and I went through and the psychological decision-making process that we went through, because that's what I do. I'm a psychologist. So of course I wrote everything down in my journal, and it was afterwards that I realized that this is actually what had happened. And this is what we had done. And of course, we became a lot more resilient from it. And I think what's really important is out of 130 passengers, only 40 of us did it because of these extreme conditions. And afterwards, we spoke to a lot of the people that didn't go. And this is what they said. They didn't want to be the weakest link and hold people up or slip over and hold the group up. They didn't want to risk falling over because the risk was too high because of the ice. They weren't sure that they were fit enough. And because they didn't feel that they were sure enough that they were fit enough, they just felt that they couldn't go. And then the insurance won't cover an extreme polar hike. And people just felt that they couldn't go because of the risk. This is me, by the way. And I actually have a pair of trousers wrapped around my head here because it was so cold.
No, you didn't get to this point of discovery, mental discovery, until you faced big threat.
Yeah, well, we had to sign up there and then within the next 30 minutes so that we could then start the briefing to get out onto the expedition. So there was hardly any time. It was a pressure. It's a bit like pressure selling, or putting you under pressure in order for you to make the decision. And they had to do it because for 6 hours you were going to be out. And within those 6 hours, the weather could change and the ship may have been stuck because the ship had to get out. The ship had to get out immediately after the 6 hours in order to leave. Otherwise, we could have been iced in. These were the risks that the captain had and the captain faced. So the hike itself was 2 hours, and it was it's the most difficult thing I've ever done. And this for me was the payoff. I mean, what can I say? What can I say to you? I have the sound of the chicks asking their parents for food embedded in my memory. And I have the visuals embedded in my memory of a dream come true. And for me, the price was not too high. It was for some people. For me, the price wasn't too high. The reward was sufficient and it outweighed the risk.
This is worthy of you being communicator of the year.
No, Ed, I'm getting a bit teary because just looking, these creatures are just phenomenal. And, you know, to be privy to the world that they live in, for me, was the biggest privilege of my life. It was just amazing. And so all I would say to anyone who wants to have a sabbatical, anyone who wants to, you had a childhood dream and you want to make it come true, and then suddenly you're faced with risk factors that are beyond your control, you know, and you have to face your fears. You know, life's too short. And I feel now that I just feel so blessed. That's all I can say. It was just wonderful. But don't get me wrong, none of this was prepared. We were put into a situation that was really, really difficult. If I had come back home and hadn't got to the colony and not seen them, I would have felt that everything I had spent to get there, the pain that I'd gone through, the cold, the conditions, and I hadn't reached the goal that I'd set for myself, I would have felt so disappointed. And I think that was the driving force. That was definitely one of the driving forces that got me out there and got me there. So
let me ask you a question. I'm looking at this picture of this giant penguin. Let's assume it's a guy. Does he know you're taking this picture?
they are, yeah, no, and they're very curious. So they wanted to come over, and you're not allowed. You have to step back and things like that without falling over. But yeah, they're over a meter high. They're about 1 meter 20 centimeters. They're huge. But yeah, and the chicks. What can I say about the chicks? So there were 2,000 nesting pairs, and they had their chicks. The chicks were about 3 months old. And we
Andreea,
even
thank you for
yeah.
being there.
So thank you. Yeah. So any questions now before we? Thank you so much for listening to my story. Thank you for listening to my story.
Very well done, Heather. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, I mean, you won 2025, if I can say like that. So congratulations. And I'm really happy, I would say, especially because you fulfilled your childhood dream. I think that's the most important part.
It was for me.
Yeah. I could see your excitement and the fact that you were so still living back in that time when you saw them. So really congratulations.
Ken,
thank you.
And Joseph, we have to come to a close momentarily. Ken, do you want to add something?
In all honesty, when I saw the picture and I heard your comments about the chicks and food, I felt a pang of tears in my eyes. Just, it's that moving that here you had this dream as a child. you went through all of this, you did it, and here are the pictures, and I think it's just so wonderful and remarkable. And I agree with you to come home and look what you brought home with you, all of this. It's wonderful. I'm very happy for you and your husband. And as you said, you feel blessed, and this is a blessing. And thank you for sharing it with us. It's beautiful.
Yes. Joseph, are you still with us?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, it's stunned into silence. Yes, it's beyond impressive. And I think Andreea was absolutely right. You've definitely won 2025. And when you referred to prospect theory there, I know in Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, he refers to prospect theory as the prospect of loss outweighs the prospect of gain by 2 to 1. But in his private interviews, he said the research actually showed prospect of loss actually outweighs the prospect of gain by 5 to 1. But the publisher didn't want to acknowledge that. So if you think in terms of the prospect of loss outweighing the prospect of gain by 5 to 1, and you're in that 30-minute mirror where you've got to make a choice, that to me really heightens my admiration for you and your husband in accomplishing this. So just huge congratulations. I'm just so impressed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
but
I'm honored that you took this time to share on global TV. This is a winner.
And I must say, first of all, I have 3,000 photographs, not just of emperors, but we saw other penguins and we saw other seals. And to select just a couple of, I could have just done the whole thing on penguins, but you know, I picked just a couple to show you the colony itself and how big it is, and then the chicks, of course, with the parents. But anyway, so I just took a few, but we saw other penguins and the icebergs and the settings. It's just incredible. I highly recommend, if anybody would like to go to Antarctica, if you know anybody, I'd be happy to share any information that I have with anyone. So I just wanted to say that too.
Okay, thank you all for sticking with us here. This has just been a wonderful experience, a lifetime memory, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for your kind attention, and Happy New Year to everybody, and happy holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Heather.
Take care.
Very nice to see all of you.
It was so lovely to see you all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Come back.